It was a time when bookstores were packed, midnight movie premieres drew screaming teens, and the question Team Edward or Team Jacob could start a heated debate at lunch tables, in group chats, and even at family gatherings. Whether you loved it or mocked it, you couldn't escape it. Twilight was everywhere. I want you to think back to that time. Maybe you were reading the books, maybe you were watching the movies with friends, or maybe you were rolling your eyes every time the words sparkly vampire popped up on your feed. But here's the thing, whether you were a fan or a critic, you were a part of the conversation, and that conversation was big. Today, I'm here to argue that the Twilight Saga deserves so much more respect than it gets. The problem is this: Twilight has been written off in popular culture as shallow, cheesy, or just teen girl fluff. That dismissal doesn't just undervalue the series, but it erases the massive cultural impact it had on books, films, and fandoms as we know them today. So first, let's talk numbers. The film grossed over 3.3 billion in worldwide box office revenue across 5 films. Over 100 million copies of the books had been sold in more than 50 countries and translated into 37 languages, which reached audiences across the globe. This wasn't just commercial success, it was cultural saturation. I mean, the midnight premieres were like events, and when the final movie came out in 2012, it wasn't just playing in theaters, it was selling out in cities around the world. I remember going to the midnight premiere myself in 2012. I mean, the line wrapped around the theater. People wore Team Edward or Team Jacob shirts. I wore Team Edward, of course. And strangers were even sharing snacks in line for how long we were waiting. I mean, inside, the energy was just electric. People gasped, laughed, and even cried together. It was more than just a movie to us. It felt like a community. According to Miller in the Entertainment Weekly, Twilight didn't just launch a franchise. It launched a global cultural moment. It redefined vampire mythology for a new generation that helped spark a wave of supernatural romances in books, television, and movies. Without Twilight, it's really hard to imagine the same level of success for franchises like The Vampire Diaries, The Hunger Games, or even 50 Shades of Grey, which began as Twilight fanfiction. But cultural impact is only a part of the story. As Smith of The Atlantic points out, beneath the glittering vampires and high school romances lies a narrative about belonging, eternal love, and the fear of losing one's humanity. Bella's journey is about finding identity, making sacrifices, and becoming your true self. Universal themes that resonate far beyond just a life triangle. And then there's the fandom. Jones in the Variety reports that even more than a decade after the final film, the Twilight fandom remains one of the most active in pop culture, fueling reunions, merchandise, and online communities that welcome new fans every year. That kind of staying power is rare and powerful. So, what do we do with this? How do we change the cultural narrative? We start by acknowledging Twilight as a valid and important part of film history. So, here's my 3-part solution that I think will personally work. Personally, rewatch the films with an open mind. Notice the emotional beats, the characters' growth, the themes beyond just the romance. Socially, support fan spaces that uplift stories loved by young people, especially young women. These are communities that deserve respect, not ridicule. Culturally, push for media criticism that applies the same standard to female-led fandoms as it does to male-dominant ones. And to address the elephant in the room, yes, Twilight has its cheesy moments, but so does Star Wars, so does Marvel. We don't dismiss those franchises for their melodrama. Why? Because we've decided that those stories are culturally valuable. I'm asking, why not extend the same value to Twilight? Imagine a cultural landscape where stories created for and loved by young women are taken seriously, where critics can recognize that emotional storytelling has as much power as gritty realism, where glittery vampires can stand proudly alongside superheroes and Jedis in the Hall of Fame of pop culture icons. Now picture the alternative, continuing to dismiss and mock these stories. What other voices might we silence before we even get a chance to shape a generation? The Twilight Saga is the greatest film series of the 21st century. Not because it's perfect, okay? But because it's unforgettable. It changed publishing, transformed cinema trends, and built one of the most loyal fan communities in modern history. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Rewatch Twilight without the memes and the mockery. Look at what it actually offers. Support fandoms that champion diverse stories and audiences. And speak up when popular culture is dismissed simply because it's loved by young women. Twilight wasn't just a trend. It was a cultural awakening. And maybe it's time we stop laughing and we start listening.